Hey guys, welcome back aboard good old Athena. It is a little past 5 in the morning, and today we continue our journey further north. We're currently here in the most southeastern part of the Bahamas. We want to go from here and then further north, but from the island where we are right now, down here, up to the next big island here is about 80 miles. That's more than we can do in a day, but I was looking at the chart and I noticed this spot here out in the middle of nowhere. When zooming in, it turns out it's a little atoll, which I think also, after Googling a little bit, is one of the only atolls outside of the Pacific. On the chart, it says dries to 0.3 to 0.6 meters. So this in here is never going to be fully protected from any kind of sea state. But the last few days have been very settled. So hopefully we can anchor here overnight. We don't know how accurate the charts are, so we want to make sure to get there while the sun is still high in the sky so we can better see any kind of coral little bumps underwater, stuff like that. So hence the early morning, but let's get underway. If you're new here, we're Ava and Mess. I spent 7 years on a somewhat extensive refit of our 1987 Trident Warrior sailboat named Athena. It was an oh glorious sanding extravaganza. We left Denmark and started cruising full-time, sailing down Europe's west coast, and then we had our biggest adventure yet, crossing the Atlantic. Now we're sanding and sailing our way around the world. We pulled up the anchor and now we can wave goodbye to Great Anagua.
Goodbye. We really enjoyed this Anchorage. It was so nice. We were the only ones here.
Yep.
The water was like so crystal clear and blue. We swam so much. We even got to do some diving, which was really nice. But we really loved it, except
for one thing, and that was the mountain of skeeters.
oh my God.
I used to go with my parents on vacations in like Finland and Sweden and Norway and Iceland and Greenland and stuff like that. And like there's a lot of mosquitoes. There's more mosquitoes than here, but I haven't seen this many mosquitoes since back then.
Yeah, this morning I went to go, we have the screens on our window, on our hatches, which has just like literally been the best thing to keep the mosquitoes out. But I went to go open the screen so I can close the hatch before we left. And it was just like, I opened the screen and it was just like a swarm of mosquitoes. And I was like, no, like just killing them all. So it's bad.
If we direct our attention to the handy dandy chart plotter, you can see we have 38 miles to go to our destination up here in the middle of nowhere. And as is so often the case, we've run into a bit of a pronunciation issue.
Yeah. We don't know if it's atoll or atoll.
Yeah.
And even looking it up on the internet, it doesn't seem to be very clear. So
Yeah. Well,
if you know, please let us know in the comments, as we know people will let us know.
But also, if you know, just maybe just correct it in your mind instead of being mean about it, because yeah.
We know we don't pronounce things correctly. We do our best, but
As you can see down here, we have about 6 knots of wind. That is going to mean another motor fest for us. 6 knots of wind is just not enough for us to sail. But in this case, the only reason that we might be able to anchor and stay overnight at the atoll is because of the no wind and the low sea state. So at least there's a substantial silver lining here. After hours of rumbling along, we finally caught our first glimpse of the tiny sand island that marks the entrance into the atoll. There is nothing on the island except birds and an old navigational marker. Inside of the atoll, we found ourselves anchored in 7 meters of water, surrounded by nothing but open water. Not counting the tiny sand island, it is 40 nautical miles to the nearest bit of land, and right outside of the atoll, the depth plummets to 1,500 meters or 5,000 feet.
this place is pretty incredible.
It's definitely special.
Yeah, I would say one of the top places that we've been.
I mean, we've been to some nice places,
Yeah.
but this is very different, right? Because it's out in the middle of freaking nothing.
Yeah, and we're anchored. And it's just like, it feels like very remote, and like it seems like not a lot of people have come here.
No.
And it just, like that's why we love this. It feels like we're like discovering something new, even though we know we haven't, but that's what it feels like.
Yeah, we definitely aren't the first to discover this place, because
No,
there's a bunch of
definitely not.
wrecks on the reef around this place. So
Yeah.
yeah, plenty of people have found it. As you might be able to see here on the chart plotter, we are slab dab in the middle of everything. We did first try an anchor over here by this little island, but the holding wasn't great, and we just couldn't get the anchor to bite. So instead we came into, well, here, the middle of everything.
We would have liked to stay here a couple of days, but it is really rolly. But yeah, I mean, we really wanted to check out the island, and maybe even though people said the shipwrecks aren't that great, it would still be cool to check them out. But I don't know how long we could handle the rolliness.
The rolliness kind of comes and goes, but as soon as we get a little bit beam to the swell, then it gets a little bit lumpy here. But I think the real limitation for us staying here is the fact that the wind is supposed to pick up in a couple of days, and you definitely don't want to be here when there's any kind of wind or sea state. The next morning we pulled up the anchor and motored the 40 miles to our next overnight stop, this really cool looking island with an abandoned lighthouse on it. We dropped the anchor in yet another picturesque Anchorage, something the Bahamas seems to have no shortage of. With Athena gently bobbing around in the swell, we headed to shore to stretch our legs. This is a bit of a shame. I just dove on our anchor here. It seems like the entire bottom here is a very thin layer of sand over just really hard coral bedrock, or whatever you want to call it. And the only reason our anchor is holding for now is because it's kind of wedged behind some dead coral. So I don't think we should spend the night here. That is a giant shame, because I was really excited to check out this abandoned lighthouse in here, and there's also some other structures in there. And of course there's a wreck right there in the water, but yeah, better safe than sorry. Fingers crossed we can get the anchor out without me having to don scuba gear and go down there and wrestle it loose. Yep, we're free. Apologies for the amount of sweatiness here. It is the next day. Last night we moved about 8 miles further north. We were down here by the lighthouse, and then we moved up here to this area here, which I believe is called Sugar Bay. If we take a closer look at this area, you can see that it's all between 2 to maybe 4 meters, and a lot of this looks like it's just pure sand. Based on our experience from last night, this is one of those places where it's just so super easy to anchor. You just toss the hook in and reverse a little bit, and it's 100% guaranteed that it'll set the first time. There is good reason as to why I'm sweating so profusely. It is hot today. There's, again, no wind, so that makes it hot, but also we've just filled our scuba tanks because it is yet again hull cleaning time. I've cleaned the hull in the videos a couple of times now, and I've always wanted to be somewhere where it was shallow enough and where the visibility was good enough that we could just set a camera up down on the bottom of the sea and just film everything. And I think if we're ever going to be able to pull that off, this is going to be the spot. It's been about a month since I last cleaned the hull, and that includes a week in San Juan where there seemed to be a lot of growth. That taken into consideration, I think the cover coat is doing really well. All we had was a little bit of soft growth. I'm also excited to say that the Prop 1 product on our prop, which seems to be very similar to Prop Speed, is doing really well. No growth and no signs of coating failure as of yet. The only bit of hard growth was on the Skag shoe, which is just raw stainless without any kind of anti-fouling. My process for cleaning the hull is the same as always. I scrape away any fuzzy bits and barnacles if there are any. I find it's easier to scrape the hull first and then use a Scotch-Brite pad. If you skip the scraping step and go straight to the Scotch-Brite pad, the pad gets clogged in soft growth and stops being effective. Fortunately, this time around I got a hand from Ava with the scrubbing, meaning less work for me. At some point in the future it would be really fun to try one of those battery-powered tools for scrubbing the hull, but for now we're sticking to elbow grease. The next morning we set off yet again for yet another 40-mile trip of mainly motoring. We did pass one unexpected squall line and were rewarded with 23 knots of wind straight on the nose for a little over an hour. In the afternoon, we reached our destination, the brand new marina on Crooked Island. Getting into the marina with any kind of draft is a slightly terrifying experience. The entrance is not well marked and you're expected to rely on visual navigation. Prior to getting to the marina, we had downloaded Explorer charts and Aqua maps on our phones, and that was a giant help in finding our way in. Once inside the breakwater, we got a warm welcome as we tied up to the fuel dock. Ava was on pump duty and I monitored the transfer of diesel between our internal tanks. And before I forget, the camera at the top of the mast was also a giant help in finding our way in through the coral heads. I will definitely be adding a mast camera on our next boat.
Good morning, guys. We are back on the way. This might be our second to last overnight passage before we get to the US. It is 140 miles up to the cut where we're going to be entering into the protected side of the Exumas. And to the surprise of absolutely no one, it's another completely windless day. But it is kind of nice that it's overcast, at least that way it's not as hot. We are down here, we're heading up here. I believe this long chain of islands that's here is what's referred to as the Exumas. And from what I can see on marine traffic and from what we've read, this seems to be like the most popular spot in the Bahamas. We're going to be entering in through this opening here, this cut here, that's called Dottom Cut. And the timing here is very important, as with all of the openings in and out of the Exumas. If we can time our arrival so we're there at around between 8 to 10 tomorrow morning, then we should be able to get through. If it gets any later than that, then we might have to wait until the afternoon. But yeah, let's see how it goes. The reason timing is important when it comes to these cuts is because they're relatively narrow and there's a lot of water flowing in and out, meaning a lot of current, and that can be either uncomfortable or even downright dangerous. So yeah, timing here is, like I said, very important. That night we were rewarded with one of the most beautiful sunsets we've had at sea this season, and the beauty didn't stop when the sun set. The moon rose and we were treated to a beautiful thunderstorm, luckily off in the distance. We had a couple of squalls dump massive amounts of rain on us during the night, but other than that, it was smooth motoring. It is now a full 27 hours later and we're about 3 miles from the cut. I think we've timed this basically perfect. We should be getting to the cut right around slack. So we should arrive at the cut with basically no water flowing in or out, so meaning no current either way. And also we only have about 3 or 4 knots of wind this morning. So yeah, it should be an easy trip through the cut. We don't have any exact timing for the cut we're going to be going through, but one that's really near has slack at 8:48, and we should be getting to our cut at 9:04, so I think that's close enough. Close enough for the tide forecast to be somewhat wrong. As you can see here on the water, there's definitely some current flowing. As we got to the middle of the cut, we saw around 2 knots of current flowing against us. But except for being uncomfortably close to this very pointy rock as per the recommended route, everything went smoothly. Woohoo! It's official! We have made it to the Exumas. Look at that watercolor. This is probably some of the best cruising in the world, provided you've got a shallow draft. Right now we're anchored in 3 meters of water, but coming into the anchorage here, we saw, I think, 2.1 meters, something like that. The visibility in the water here is just amazing. This is only 3 meters, but I mean, I swear I can almost count the number of legs on the crabs on the bottom here. This week has been a lot of just getting from point A to point B, but we have allowed ourselves the next 4 to 5 days to just do very, very short, like 2 to 5 mile jumps here along the Exumas and just have plenty of time for diving and other fun stuff. And what better way to celebrate our arrival in the Exumas than to take Mr. Moneymaker here for a spin. Ava brought back this little guy to the boat. He is a pinpointer. He should greatly help me in locating any tiny little pieces of treasure I find under the sand.
All suited up, I popped on the fashion-forward yellow headphones and got Mr. Moneymaker all fired up. This anchorage is a super popular anchorage during the cruising season, often crammed full of 50 or more boats from what we've heard, so I figured my chances of finding something here must be pretty good. To be honest, I love underwater metal detecting just for the fact that I get to spend some time underwater, and it's a great way to relax and think about almost nothing except for just trying to find treasure. Under the watchful eye of our little stowaway here, the hunt went on and on until, out of the blue, I got a signal. I used the pinpointer to tell me the precise location and started digging. Apparently Mr. Crab here didn't like me attempting to steal his treasure. And speaking of treasure, here is my first ever real underwater find, the highly sought after rusted piece of metal wire. Feast your eyes on the marvel. You can clearly see the excitement in Ava's eyes here, knowing that our retirement fund just got a massive boost. Despite our incredible windfall, I think you guys should probably still expect to see a video next Sunday. And speaking of our short-term plans, as I mentioned, we're going to spend the next, well, maybe just shy of a week here in the Exumas, just getting to see some of the place and just having a little bit of fun before we do the final jump to the US. We're currently somewhere right around here, and it's going to be about 300 nautical miles for us to jump all the way up to Cape Canaveral. As much as we would both love to stay here longer, it is getting late in the season and hurricane season is knocking on the door. And on the hopeful hope that we make it to the US before any hurricanes hit the Bahamas.
Oh gosh.
Yeesh. We'll end this week's video here. We'll see all you guys back here aboard Athena next week for some diving fun.
Woo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, as always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video,
Please remember to leave a like.
see you. Good job, lovey. Pachoo.
Pew.
Pachoo, pew, pew.
Pew, 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 pew.
Yeah.
The whole universe was in a hot, dense state, and nearly 14 billion years ago, expansion started. Wait, the Earth began to cool, the autotrophs began to drool, Neanderthals developed to live until while we built the pyramids. Math, science, history, unraveling the mystery. It all started with the Big Bang.
Bang. Yep, we've started watching Big Bang Theory, just like a couple of episodes a night just to relax a little bit, and this has been the soundtrack to my life for the last
It was my goal to learn the
month.
theme song, and I did it.
Yes.
I did it. I did it.
Okay.